Okay, so welcome to the next session in our introductory webinar series from Blustream as we launch here in the United States. I'm Jason Fitzgerald, one of the product managers here at Blustream US. And today we'll be spending the time to talk about HDMI distribution, but more specifically, distribution over HDBaseT. Right, Blustream is focused on bringing some of the latest and greatest technologies to our customers, such as our multicast video over IP platform that we discussed in our previous webinar. And it's still both important and relevant to talk about HDBaseT. It still remains the de facto method in our industry to send HDMI combined with control signals over a dedicated cable infrastructure. So today we'll take a brief look at HDBaseT, the technology, and then dive into the exciting offerings that Blustream has brought to market that's really helped establish the brand as a powerhouse for AV distribution around the globe. So your microphones will be muted for the duration of this presentation to stop any background noises from disturbing the session, and then we'll host a Q&A session immediately following. But please feel free to utilize the question section of the webinar to ask anything relevant that's or immediate at that time, because we do have specialists standing by to address both product and sales questions. So let's first dive in by talking about Blustream and really some of the cornerstones that have made Blustream what it is today. So we've discussed these cornerstones, of the Blustream company in our last presentation. And I just want to reiterate this one more time, because these are the key reasons that we've seen such huge success for the Blustream brand globally, and it's something that we'll continue to drive on here in the United States. So these cornerstones, of course, are features, price, and reliability, right? We believe that without harmony among these three benefits, we can't be a successful company. And as generic as these may seem, these cornerstones really should be at the forefront of any business. But we've truly embraced these as our way of doing business in all of the verticals that we cover. So features and products, and not only in their problem-solving capabilities that address the challenges that you face in the field, but it's also features in terms of the selection and application of the right technologies and at the right time that have been key focal areas in development that Blustream has endeavored to execute really since its inception. So with price, Blustream has always strived to be extremely competitive with both value and functionality against the other brands in our industry, right? We've taken the steps to go to market in the US to make sure that our solutions can't be shopped around on the internet and they can't be purchased directly by end users. So we'll be relying on you, our partners, to both be the champions for Blustream and also the benefactors of the incredible margins and programs that we'll be bringing here to the States. And of course, there is reliability. Blustream products have proven time and time again that they're both reliable and robust solutions that can stand the test of time in both residential and commercial installations. And as we move forward here in the United States, we aim to continue this tradition and mission to bringing you the features, pricing, and reliability that you'll come to rely on as Blustream partners. So now let's talk a little bit about HDBaseT. Now there's probably only a few of you here that either haven't heard of HDBaseT or have used HDBaseT out in the field. It's really become the de facto standard technology that lives in many of our extension products that you'll find today in our business. Blustream's a proud member of the HDBaseT Alliance, and having been a member for so many years, we've really leaned on their technology heavily to bring both creative and mainstay products to our lineup of solutions. And for those of you who may not be familiar with HDBaseT, we first need to be talking about signals. So installers have always been faced with the challenge and need to pipe or run signals in an installation from A to B. And as AV installations grown more complex, and the number of different types of data signals were needed, such as audio, video, control, and power, the complexities of installing and managing these cables also grew. More cables also means more potential points of failure, and add to this the differential amongst all these different cable and head sizes, which leads to even more challenges when running these within a site, often concurrently, in either outwall, in-wall, or conduit. And because the heads of all these cables are built in and non-serviceable, a failure means that cables would likely need to be replaced whole. And I can tell you from experience that if there isn't enough clearance to pull another whole cable through, it can really lead to a disaster. But most importantly, there are some significant differences in the maximum distances that these signals are able to travel on bare copper wire. So here we can see some of the most commonly used signals in the AV industry. along with their maximum ranges. And as you can see, there can be quite a large difference between these cables. And more importantly, these links are in many cases far shorter than what we typically may need. So if running them concurrently, the maximum distance is then almost always going to be determined by the shortest cable. And because of this, primarily, an external extension device or technology is needed. Hence, the opportunity existed for HDBaseT to converge these signals into one. Now, there have been for many years prior to HDBaseT products that could extend these signals over long distances and using various mediums. But it's in HDBaseT's ability to combine all of these signals together and then extend them over a single CAT cable that's had the biggest impact on our industry. Using a medium like category cabling that's both inexpensive and fairly easy to terminate is great. And a large part of the success is really in the distances that we can now extend all of these signals to, which I'm really happy to say is far greater than their standard cable counterparts. We're talking nearly 500 feet in some instances, with the majority of products that Blustream carries being capable of between 70 and 100 meters, which, if we're talking freedom units, is between 230 and 300 feet. Now, with HDBaseT, there's the possibility to do audio, both analog and digital, video, Ethernet, serial, USB, IR, and yes, even power. At the heart of this, HDBaseT is really about convergence. Being able to take multiple cables and replace them with one singular type that'll manage as little or as many signals that are commonly in use for AV today. And at the center of Blustream, there's a wide array of solutions that we offer that harness this technology in various I/O combinations that'll give you the right features, pricing, and reliability that's perfect for your next project. Now, we're going to go start diving into our products in the first category, and arguably the most prominent that features HDBaseT are matrices. Right, when I talk about AV signal distribution, I usually preface this by talking about the 5 tenets of AV signal management. And this is, of course, to extend, switch, split, matrix, and convert. And to be a proficient company in this industry, you really need to be good at building products in all 5 of these categories. Now, when we start combining some of these categories together, we start seeing more application-specific products. So when I talk about matrices, right, combining this with extension capabilities really pit these squarely into the residential market, where there's a common need to both matrix and extend these signals to displays that are really outside the range of standard cabling. But there's also, quite extensive use in the commercial application for the very same reasons, right? Most small to mid-sized applications in, say, hospitality or bars can also use matrix extenders as their I/O. Now, that's inputs and outputs. Those requirements are well within the standard range where multicast, our video over IP solution, may not be the most cost-effective route. And the number of sources and displays there are reasonably static. In other words, they don't change very often. Now, as Blustream's roots are clearly in the residential market, these products, these matrix extension products, were one of the first to gain widespread notoriety. For our US launch, we're introducing a number of these matrix products that feature HDBaseT, and each of them are part of one of the 3 lines shown here. The Custom Pro Matrix is one of the most exciting products in the Blustream Matrix family and features a modular design that lends itself well to commercial applications as well as residential, where the ability to change its configuration is considered on a project. The Essential Matrix lineup currently consists of a 4x4 solution. That's 4 inputs and 4 outputs. And while there are technically other products that make up this line amongst the full Blustream brand catalog, we've chosen to launch here in the United States with solutions that are capable of routing full 18 gigabits per second HDMI 2.0 signals. Now, this line is also set to be extending very soon, and we'll talk about some of these new solutions as a sneak peek prior to their launch. And lastly, we have our Contractor series. Now, this line is aimed at integrators who need a smart and functional HDMI distribution line that's both sensitive to pricing while keeping the main extension capabilities of HDMI and control signaling intact. And first up, we're going to start talking about our Custom Pro Matrix series. These matrix solutions have been designed to be both robust and agile for installations that need solutions that'll be capable of operating 24/7 in the most demanding of situations. Think command and control centers and high-end residential applications. There are a plethora of input and output cards available with a focus on both HDBaseT and HDMI, and with a completely plug-and-play architecture, these beastly matrices are both easy to install and operate. Audio breakout and embedding are available for those situations that require the need to send audio, separately to a third-party audio distribution system, or change the source audio. For example, the need to send one external signal to all the outputs like in a PA system. Full HDMI 2.0, 18 gigabit per second bandwidth ensures that the latest AV signals are capable of being routed through this system, making it perfect for use with everything from 4K Blu-ray players to computers. At the core of each custom Pro Matrix is the hub. Now, these are the chassis in which all of the input, output, audio, and control boards are connected to. Its fully featured backplane is capable of large amounts of data transfer for both HDMI and HDBaseT purposes. Now, we can also see the I/O capabilities of each. Now, systems can be designed with either one of these chassis using a variable I/O structure ranging from 2x2 up to 8x8 on the smaller 2U chassis, and then extending further up to a maximum of 16x16 on the 4U chassis, with any combination of even numbers of inputs and outputs to achieve the designed I/O structure for the install. Looking at the back panel of the 8x8 hub, you can see that the top half of this matrix is dedicated to the control and audio functions, while the bottom half is for video inputs and outputs. If we were to cut this matrix in half vertically, you'll see that the left side is dedicated primarily to input functions, while the right is for output. And once you've learned, how each of these quadrants are laid out, it's easy to specify and design a system based on the unique requirements for your application. The main chassis already includes the matrix control board, where external control over TCP/IP and serial for this matrix can be administered. In addition to this, 8 stereo audio inputs are included that'll provide an easy way to bring in external audio sources. All their inputs and outputs are provided via cards that can be added or removed as required. You don't need IR extension for your matrix? You won't have to include it. Right? Not using any serial devices at either the end of the extension? No problem. You don't have to purchase or use that I/O board. You get to decide how your matrix is built based on the specific needs for your installation. Its bigger brother, the Pro 16 hub, is laid out in the exact same manner, with more slots provided for the additional I/Os that can be utilized with this version. One of the biggest upgrades to moving to this larger chassis design is the inclusion of an internal power supply, as well as already including the IR distribution cards necessary to operate all 16 ins and outs. Here you can also see the simultaneous output cards that we offer that can mirror and output to both HDMI and HDBaseT, essentially doubling the number of displays you can address with the system. Now, this gives either the 8x8 or 16x16 that double number of outputs versus inputs in cases where you need to address more displays, albeit with the unique output routes still being limited to the base 8 or 16 provided on each chassis. And remember, setting up this matrix is as easy as slotting it in the cards and just turning it on. No need for any type of configuration, as everything is managed automatically, making this one of the easiest modular matrices to install in the market. Now, taking a closer look at some of the features that are offered in the custom Pro Matrix range, you can see some standout features, including HDR support and smart scaling technology that automatically can detect your display's resolution. So this is whether it's 4K or 1080p, and then appropriately downscale each individual output so that no matter the screen you're using, you'll always get a picture. Again, here's another example of how Blustream is designing products that are simple to install and operate. It supports both analog and digital audio breakouts, as well as integrated POC, so that's power over cable, to ensure that remote receivers won't require an external power supply. This POC function has a side benefit because it isolates any grounding issues that may arise when using 2 power supplies and the potential coupling across a shielded cable. There's various inputs and output cards, and we'll talk about those next. And of course, there is advanced EDID management and full HDCP 2.2 compliance. One of the best features about this matrix comes in the form of its ability to be controlled via third-party control systems. Drivers for all the major control brands are ready and standing by and can be freely downloaded from the Blustream website. So, Jason, we have this modular chassis. Well, what kind of boards are there? Well, I'm glad that you asked. And even if you didn't ask, we're going to talk about them anyway. So we're going to first start with the input side. And on the in total on the input side, there are 4 different input cards, each that can be doubled or quadrupled based on which chassis version that you've selected. So that's the 8x8 or 16x16. The cards can be fully mixed. So there's quite a few possibilities that can be made using these sets. First, we have raw HDMI inputs, a 2-input and a 4-input card, each featuring a local audio breakout, that's separate from the audio breakout boards that can be loaded into the output side of the chassis. These audio breakouts give us direct access to audio from each source, which is fantastic when we want to freely distribute a static source using an audio distribution system. So most products in the Blustream lineup feature audio breakout, but in nearly all those cases, as we separate audio breakout boards for this line, those are sourced from the output. So in other words, they're directly tied to the output and will change based on the currently selected source. Having static audio outputs, like those coupled with the HDMI inputs here, will always give us audio from the connected source, and it's supremely useful when you need to have the audio from an input that's always going to be available. So this is audio that isn't tied to an output or an output zone. Next up, we have a combo VGA and HDMI input card that features up to 2 inputs of each type. Now, this gives you support for legacy over VGA and converts that old analog technology and brings it to the digital realm. This is perfect for hospitality or even conference room applications where there's a need to have access both to old and new technology. And lastly, we have the HDBaseT dual input card. Now, this card is unique within Blustream as it's the only Matrix product that features HDBaseT inputs to bring in remote sources from an extended location, right? So while most applications will house all their source devices at the rack where the Matrix is located, it's extremely useful to have the option to bring in sources from another location and then make them available for AV distribution. For example, when we talk about gaming consoles, there's a limitation to how far those wireless controllers will reach, and so those consoles are most typically connected in-room, so that's wherever those displays are. But as most of you know, gaming systems these days go beyond just gaming, and so as media devices, you're going to want to have them accessible for viewing in different areas of the house. So Blu-ray players, another good example of this, where you don't want to keep the player in a central location because physical media discs need to be changed. So you've got a player in a local room with the ability then to send this to the Matrix remotely for distribution. For these scenarios, you can use the HEX 70CS transmitter. It's an HDBaseT transmitter with a local loop out. So this will still allow you to keep your source directly connected to that display, that Blu-ray player, that gaming console, while then concurrently sending this over HDBaseT to the Matrix for distribution throughout the home. You get the best of both direct connection as well as HDMI distribution. Let's move on now and look at the other side of this Pro Matrix equation, the output cards. Here we have 8 different output cards, all capable of HDMI at 60 Hz with up to 444 chroma sampling. Again, we have a 2 and 4 raw HDMI output, but in addition to these, there are 2 3-card sets that all feature, you guessed it, HDBaseT. Each of these sets are differentiated by their distance capabilities, with one set featuring the standard HDBaseT extension distance of 100 meters or 330 feet at 1080p, while the other uses the light version of HDBaseT and can reach 70 meters or 230 feet at 1080p. Both of these sets process and extend 18 gigabits per second HDMI 2.0, and when using 4K resolutions, the distances are slightly reduced. Within each set is a 2 and 4 output HDBaseT card, as well as a simultaneous output card that features both HDMI and HDBaseT, doubling the outputs. Each grouping of HDMI and HDBaseT are mirrored outputs of each other, so do keep this in mind. To close the loop on the HDBaseT output cards, we need to talk about compatible receivers. Each one shown here is part of the standard HDBaseT product line and are offered as both pairs and individual receivers. So there's really nothing proprietary here about these products. There's no special receivers that are needed to work just with these Matrix products. For each of the distance sets of cards, the 100 meters and 70 meters, there's the HEX 70CS and HEX 100CS receivers appropriately, and they pair beautifully with the custom Pro Matrix. For added value, and when only 1080p or 4K Ultra HD at the chroma subsampling of 420, this is a lower bandwidth. When those are needed, there's the Hex 70 SL or slimline receiver that tucks away nicely, as well as comes in an extremely competitive cost point. We'll talk a bit more about these and other HDBaseT extenders shortly. Last and certainly not least, we have the control signal and audio breakout cards. There are quite a few options here, with cards that support 5V or both 5V and 12V IR, as well as audio breakout boards that have fixed or variable line level outputs. Remember, the whole point of the Custom Pro Matrix series is about modularity. You get to decide what you need and when you need it. Before we move on, I want to show you a quick snippet of the specification guide that's available for download right on the Blustream US website. And here it shows you how easy this product is to set up, as well as go into some additional details on how you can spec this product for a project. It's an excellent tool for both informational and sales purposes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Custom Pro Matrix series. It is a beast of a product, but when you need flexibility and a rock-solid solution for HDMI distribution, you'd really be hard-pressed to find a better solution that's perfect for both your high-end residential and commercial projects. We're going to move on to the Essential Matrix line, which I mentioned today consists of this one product in the US, yet it strikes the perfect balance between performance, available IOs, and that's inputs and outputs, as well as price for a 4x4 matrix. Long has the 4x4 been the main starting point for matrix-style AV distribution products, as it's the Goldilocks of the matrix world. Not too few inputs and outputs, and not too many inputs and outputs for most of your standard residential and even light commercial applications. It's just right in the middle. This Essential Line Matrix features CSC technology, and while you may have seen CSC on some of the slides already, we'll get into the details on that next. But suffice it to say, CSC technology allows you to get to the 18 gigabits per second needed for HDMI 2.0 utilizing smart color conversion. Perceptively, it's visually lossless and uses the same kind of sampling scheme that you get on DVDs and Blu-rays. And listen, if it's good enough for the movie media industry, well, I think you get the idea. So then what is CSC? So CSC stands for color space conversion, and the first thing we should talk about is that HDBaseT has a limit, and we're talking about the current iteration of HDBaseT that is widely being used today, and this limit is 10.2 gigabits per second in terms of the bandwidth it can transmit over that link. So when we're talking about 18 gigabits per second HDMI 2.0, how do we get that to fit over this pipe? Well, we use this kind of conversion method that'll take an incoming signal about, let's say, 4K 60, 444, which is basically full color, and then down convert that color to 420, which is basically what they call a chroma subsampling scheme. Now, without going into too many details, what we're basically doing is removing some of the color that is less perceptible, let's say, to the human eye, and then we'll set it over the link and then reconvert it back on the output, so you're getting the full signal back on the opposite side. So this conversion process, like I said, is not really perceptible to the human eye, and it's that same method that is used to store content on Blu-rays and DVDs today. So with this method of CSC, we can fit that information over the pipe and then send it, of course, to the receiver side. Now, this technology is built into all the products that have this moniker CS. Well, that's part of the product name, this CSC color space conversion. In addition to that, there are some other benefits of products that have CSC built in, and one of those is automatic downsampling or downscaling. So when we have a 4K signal that's coming across the link, in those products that integrate CSC, we have the option or ability to change it down to, let's say, a 1080p signal. So if you have a display on the opposite side that's not fully 4K capable, we'll detect that and we can change the output then to 1080p. This gives us a maximum compatibility with systems, being able to do the full bandwidth of HDMI and address not only displays on the opposite end that are fully 4K, but in addition to that, we can also do 1080p as well. So now getting back to the HMXL44CS, the Essential Line Matrix, and taking a look at the back panel reveals a host of connectors, from your standard HDMI 2.0 inputs to 4 HDBaseT outputs, along with a local HDMI output as well, right? IR and serial capabilities for remote display and source control, along with variable audio breakouts and automatic smart scaling on HDBaseT output 1 are also here. It's everything you need to address and control the HDMI devices of today. As this is a kit, The Hex 70CS receivers are already included, which gives you everything in one box to get a 4x4 system up and running. Combined with available drivers for major control systems, as well as the ease of tried and true Blustream plug-and-play ability, this is bread and butter territory that we're talking about here when it comes to building out small matrix installations. The final product in our HDBaseT Matrix line are all part of the Contractor series. As I noted before, these products have been designed to be both flexible and a huge value for CI integrators when it comes to HDMI distribution. And I struggle to say basic, as these are anything but in terms of the features to price value that's being provided. But these simply get the job done when you just need HDMI with IR control capabilities. And this is something that becomes extremely important in both simple and complex installations that really saturate the entire AV industry. In smaller, more cost-sensitive projects, you'll get an HDMI distribution without having the functions that may not be needed. For example, audio breakout can be done separately per input or output, and Blustream does indeed make products that perform this function. You get the HDMI distribution that you need without being burdened by having to pay for additional functions that you either don't need or won't use. On the opposite side of the spectrum, larger AV distribution systems can consist of a number of different types of products that all need to be routed through different devices to ultimately achieve an end goal that's really set forth by the parameters of a project. In many of those cases, HDMI matrixing is needed at one stage of this type of system, say in a corporate application that needs to route HDMI signals to different areas, and then directly digest this into a media system workflow. In that capacity, the Contractor series of products serves as a single building block of that system while only doing what it does best: pipe around HDMI in a simple and elegant fashion. These are excellent products that embody the essence of what HDMI distribution is at its most basic level. Now, this lineup consists of 3 HDBaseT Matrix extenders in 3 different I/O configurations. So that's 4x4, 6x6, and 8x8. While we don't need to dive into the exacting details of each, it's important to note that the 4x4 matrix has been designed for use with either 1080p 60 or 4K 60 at 420, and it's well suited for those installations that are still using 1080p for their main video infrastructure. This is something that's still common to find in commercial applications where the fidelity of 4K isn't always necessary. Now, both the 66CS and the 88CS matrix extenders are full 18 gigabits per second capable. Here, we have our first look at the back panel of the 4x4, and as you'll see here shortly, the other two carry similar design layouts. A common theme for these matrices are their ties to being both simple and clean, with the 4x4 here having a singular mirrored HDMI and HDBaseT output, a bidirectional IR capabilities for controlling TVs and sources on either side of the system, and for control, it carries what has become the standard trifecta of control interfaces for many Blustream products, so that's serial, IR, and TCP/IP. There's a fully fledged web browser here that allows configuration of system functions and features, so even though it may seem basic in design, the advanced features for management are here. Stepping up to the 66CS, we have some additional inputs and outputs, but also an integrated power supply, a welcome addition that'll help save space on power strips and makes this even simpler to deploy. There's a simultaneous HDMI output assigned to HDBaseT output 1 for mirroring to an AVR or further distribution. The HDBaseT outputs all use CSC to keep our system EATed as high as it can be. With auto scaling on all the HDBaseT outputs, again, a mixture of 1080p and first-gen 4K displays can be used without worry of EATed bringing down your system to the highest common denominator. The C88CS, or 8x8, steps up the I/O count even higher, right, with similar fit and function as the 6x6. One additional great feature of this product is that it's still only a single RU or rack height, which means that it has the maximum amount of flexibility to install, and as we've seen time and time again with many competitors, similar products in this category require 2 rack spaces to host this many inputs and outputs, whereas here on the C88, we can still do everything here in 1 RU space. So that's the Contractor line. We've talked about the Matrix Pro series. We've talked about the Essential line. And now we're going to be moving on to HDBaseT extenders. So we're moving along our HDBaseT journey into Blustream solutions, and we're going to talk about extension. This one function, extension, is one of the most common necessities in any installation. And here at Blustream, there is an array of products that we offer to help you accomplish this task. So we're going to start by showing you the range of full extender kits that Blustream US offers today. So there are solutions here that are strictly designed to work with 1080p, and some that can handle resolutions all the way up to 4K Ultra HD. The range that these products can reach also varies depending on which HDBaseT tech is built inside, with distances spanning 70 to 100 meters. Or again, in freedom units, that's 230 to 330 feet. The one important and standout point to note is really plainly just stated here, and that's that the full range of Blustream HDBaseT equipment is 100% interoperable. So regardless if you're using a 70 meter or 100 meter solution, the transmitters and receivers will be able to communicate with each other. Now, mind you that isn't a common thing to split kits up this way, but as we do offer some of these kits as individual transmitters or receivers, it's good to point this out. At a minimum, you'll be able to pass 1080p 60 or 4K 60 at 420 between any of these products, regardless of their inclusion of CSC technology. Now remember, CSC is that conversion technique that we use to eclipse the natural 10.2 gigabits per second bandwidth barrier that HDBaseT technology possesses today, and that's without taking into account or talking about their newest chip iterations. However, we are currently hard at work on integrating those new solutions or new chips into products already. But suffice it to say, with some of the advanced capabilities that each of these solutions possess, you'll be able to creatively solve any problems that you may encounter in the field. And as time is counting down on this session, I'll go through these next slides and call out the specific differentiators in these products just to show you how truly amazing they are. So one more quick note, if you haven't noticed already, and I was hoping that you would, but part of the naming structure on our products is indicative of its capabilities. This means it's easier to spec a product in an installation just by glancing at its name. As a general rule of thumb, and this goes for many of the Blustream products, but not all, the number designation in the part, such as 70 or 100, indicates its maximum extension distance in meters. This is most often referencing its 1080p distance, and as I mentioned earlier, 4K is achievable on many of these products, but at a slightly lower distance. The CS moniker that's attached to many of these products is short for CSD, or color space conversion, which we talked about earlier, and denotes the ability to accept an 18 gigabits per second HDMI 2.0 signal. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about the Hex 150 CS. Yes, the 150 here means 150 meters, and as the top of the line extender in our family, it can achieve this distance by using the built-in long reach mode. When activated, we can push 1080p to 150 meters. That's a 50% increase in distance, as well as 4K at 100 meters. This is an excellent solution when running long cables where the distance is on the fringe of the normal spec of 100 meters to ensure that video will pass. Other major features of this product are its ability to use ARC, and that's audio return channel, from either the HDMI output device or an optical input. And that's great for routing audio back to the rack in residential applications with audio breakout capabilities and HDMI loop out in the transmitter. There are a host of features on this product that make it the top of the line, and it'll help you when you find yourself in a situation where you need to route audio the opposite direction, or perhaps need to break audio out from the source and convert it from digital to analog, and split a source device to connect it locally to a display while sending it to another location. I'm thinking of you here, Roku and Apple TV, Xbox and PlayStation consoles, and other media devices. So devices that installers are typically using multiple times in a home, really. One at each display, but can instead use a product like this, where you can have your cake and extend it too. We haven't yet talked about HDMI signal reclocking, but that's built into this product and can solve a number of handshaking and other sync issues that I've seen plague other manufacturers' products. And let's also not forget the integrated down conversion of this extender that will help address incompatibilities when using a 4K source on one side and a 1080p display on the other. This can take care of that too for maximum compatibility. Next up, we have the Hex 100 CS, and as you guessed it, it can reach 100 meters at 1080p and can manage 4K at 60 Hz 444 up to 70 meters. The HDMI loop out here that we just talked about is also here, and this is the standard choice of receiver for many of the Matrix products we were just talking about. It's a solid distance performer. Audio breakout for both digital and analog, which the analog side is converted, is here, as well as reclocking capabilities and the standardized host of control interfaces. And by that, I'm talking about bidirectional IR and serial connectivity. Now, everything I just said also applies here to the Hex 70 CS, which is just as capable an extender as the Hex 100, but as its little brother, is capable of a shorter distance. Now, mind you, 70 meters or 230 feet is still very applicable and usable for a majority of projects out there, but just know that you're getting the same great features, but at a cost savings and a distance break. Next, the Hex 100 HD VGA. It's a little bit of a long title, but it's a unique piece in that it's designed for use in more pro or commercial applications where VGA is still needed. And yes, I said VGA. This connectivity standard, like the ghosts of 2020, are still somehow around, but unlike some things of 2020 that we'd rather forget, I'm talking to you, coronavirus, VGA is still a solid analog performer that doesn't carry some of the digital management burdens that can come along with connection standards like HDMI and DisplayPort. With dual inputs, we need some sort of switching mechanism, and this can be managed either automatically or manually. Now, this is a key feature for this product that sees itself at home in a corporate world of conference rooms and huddle spaces. This is something that we'll go into more detail in our next webinar in the series. Now, VGA is converted to HDMI internally and has an available audio input that's muxed or merged with the VGA video. As we still are seeing 1080p and VGA in use today, especially in verticals that this product is aimed at, again, commercial installations, this is an excellent choice when needing a basic switchable input with extension out to an HDMI display. Now, this is one of the last two extenders that we'll discuss today, and that's the Hex 70 ARC, and it's one of the newest products to join the Blustream family. Right, this product was born from the need to have an affordable ARC-capable extender, and it's got the ARC capabilities like the Hex 100 CS, but tracks more closely from a cost and feature capability standpoint to other 70-meter products. Now, there's a loop out for local HDMI pass-through and built-in IR extension, and it's an excellent compromise product that gives CI installers the right balance of performance and cost. We are, after all, living in a world where we're seeing more advanced capabilities being built directly into televisions, and while the content may be played directly on these screens for streaming video services like Amazon Prime and Netflix and Hulu, there's still going to be a need to route that audio for amplification and or distribution, which is where ARC is the prime feature that can accomplish this. One of our last solutions that we'll be talking about today in our HDBaseT featurette is the small yet mighty Hex 70 SL. Now, the SL stands for Slimline, and this product, similar to the Contractor series, carries all the basic features that we need. It is to date one of the most spec'd and sold HDBaseT extenders for Blustream. And why not? It has the basic HDMI and IR capabilities in a compact yet highly affordable package that can fit nearly anywhere. And at its core is the heart of what we've been talking about today: HDMI distribution. There isn't much else to describe this product, and it really isn't necessary. It's a workhorse for our CI installers and will continue to be used in applications where you need to get a signal from point A to point B. And let's face it, HDBaseT is still king of the hill when it comes to extension. Now, there are certainly many other products in the Blustream family integrated deeper into more vertically focused products, but we'll save that for another session. Now, before we head into our Q&A, I do want to leave you here with these key takeaways. All right, market-leading after sales and technical support, and we'll talk about that here actually in a real quick second, but 4K compatibility, comprehensive range of HDMI 2.0 and HDCP 2.2 capable products. We've got solutions across multiple technologies, right? We talked about HDBaseT and HDMI today. We talked about video over IP and the multicast product in our previous session. We have advanced EDID management in a majority of the products that we have, and they're all designed to be as plug and play and easy to use and install as possible, with a lot of the pricing features and reliability that Blustream has had and maintained for many, many years. Number of control features and options. We talked about the trifecta of control interfaces, along with those third-party drivers, which are going to be extremely important when wanting to integrate our solutions into those control systems that are out there. Not only this, but there is a packed roadmap, right, of products that are in development. We talked about some of that today, but there's even more that's coming out in 2021. So certainly stay tuned, and we'll certainly do presentations on those when they're ready. And for support, we are here for you and your customers. That's the Blustream team. We have an engineering team that is based in the UK, Europe, Australia, and now here in the US that is offering 24/6 global technical support. We have a dedicated support team. Of course, in the US, you can reach us at support@blustream-us.com. We do have worldwide training events other than these webinar series that we're doing here that's hosted by our UK team, where all of us are going to be contributing to this here in the future. There's a live chat feature on the website that you can use today. So if it's at an hour, for example, where we're not available here in the US, we have our teams in the UK all over the globe that can answer those questions for you, and that feature is always available 24/6. We do have an excellent Blustream video portal where you can find information on a majority of our products. In addition to that, we have an advanced learning portal. We'll have a session that talks more in depth about that, but this is just some of the services that we offer here at Blustream to make sure you and your customers are getting the right support that you need. And as always, you can find more information on these products and more at the Blustream US website. That's www.blustream-us.com. And before we dive into those questions, like I said, real quick, once again, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, LinkedIn. I do have provided here a quick QR code for those of you that are quick and savvy with your phones on your cameras, can take a quick picture of this here, which will lead you straight to the Blustream US catalog. Right. So, and if not, you can always head over to our website and get that catalog right now, download in PDF format. And once again, our support line is listed here. My name is Jason Fitzgerald, and let's go ahead and dive into our live Q&A session.